Okay. Okay, as you say, thanks, Paul. This is a chat about what I'm calling the no change approach to organisational change. It's a bit glib, but hopefully that will reveal itself what I mean during the slides. And it's about starting where you are in terms of organisational change or any sort of change. Okay, let me go to the next slide. A little bit about me. Just before I do that, just let you guys know that I've in the room with me, I've got Matthew Little from Northern Gas Networks. He's one of the chaps instrumental in delivering this change. So it's good to know, not only so we don't use the words that we have for him when he's not around, but also so that we can hear it from the horse's mouth as well. Okay, so a little bit about me. I know some guys on the call know me, and those guys will know that I'm a dad, a husband, a failed footballer, failed software developer, but highly successful cake eater. I'm sure Matthew could testify for that. I'm sure, is Colin and Chris on the call? Yeah. I'm sure you guys, would you describe me as a world-class cake eater?
You're up there. You're up there with the best.
Yeah. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Okay. What I do is I have a software delivery and then a sort of a lean agile change background. But the way I like to summarize it now is that I help organizations learn more about themselves and in doing so become more effective. And as Paul was saying, I'm currently in a team of HiveMinders helping Northern Gas Networks discover new ways of working. Okay. So just to set the scene for this chat, it's a brief overview of an approach we've been taking with our colleagues at a specific client, which you know already, to facilitate a move to more effective ways of working. That's probably the best way we can distill it. I'm not going to be talking about the mechanics of lean agile implementation methods. We certainly don't have the time for that, and it's not really the message I want to get across here. It's a high-level story of our journey so far, and sharing some lessons we've learned along the way. We've only got 20 minutes, probably a lot less than that now. I would love to chat about this with you guys and get the feedback and then really learn from this during the slide deck, but I fear that it would make it at least an hour. So if you guys don't mind, if you could maybe make some notes and fire away the questions at the end of the deck, that would be great. Okay, client context and goals. Just set the scene a bit more. Can you see that, Paul?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, we've got it. It's scrolling onto our screen.
Okay. So just to set the scene a bit more in terms of the domain and the client. So our client is Northern Gas Networks. As I say, it's a gas distributor. It's one of many in the UK, or one of several. It has approximately 3,000 colleagues, permanent and contractual, with approximately 400 million turnover. And I'm just looking at Matthew as I reel off these stats, and he's nodding, so that's not too bad. So it's worth noting it's a highly regulated industry with obviously potentially dangerous working environment. So you won't be surprised to know it has a strong command and control feel, and certainly to my mind, it has a control and competence culture. It does have a forward-thinking CEO, relatively new, and it does have a pioneering new CIO in the name of Dave Clark. I'm sure most of you know, well known to HiveMind. In terms of the context, it has a technology estate managed by a range of system integrators, offshore system integrators, some of them are onshore. It has a relatively high IT spend for the industry, and I suspect Matthew might describe that as an extremely high IT spend for the industry. Yeah, the initial goals for from NGN are to reduce IT spend and foster a culture of innovation and improvement throughout the organisation. The ambition is to reach those goals through the benefits, certainly partly through the benefits of implementing Agile lean practices and starting, but not limited to IT. Okay. Talking about the next slide, common Agile lean change approaches. Just if you guys can see that. Certainly in my experience and what seems to be very popular in the industry, if you want to change your team or your division or your whole organisation to this way of working, then a very popular thing to do is to implement a methodology or implement a scaling framework. There's a few out there now, SAFe being probably the most well-known. Or you might implement a well-known business change framework, or all three. You may well do that. The vehicle for that may be a formal program of change, or even that term, a business transformation. So going on, these are what I see as the common characteristics of all these approaches. Change is external or outside in. Change happens often through consultants who actually do the change, or management may mandate the change, or a bit of both. But the key to that is that it's outside in rather than coming from within. They're process-centric, these approaches. Here's a process. If you follow this, then you will be improved. I put here at best, most of these frameworks and methodologies assume that a culture is changeable, or worse than that, they ignore culture. They're often focused on outcomes, the end state. Here, this is what good looks like. How are you going to get there? And due to that, people are often on the periphery of these approaches. And also, what I find common about these approaches is that change begins immediately. Here's where you should be. Here's where you're going wrong. Start to do this. If you don't do it immediately, do it as fast as you can, and that sort of thing. And for me, all these approaches have something in common, and that is they amplify resistance, and that is they promote resistance as a key decision. They almost put it on a pedestal, if you like. This is what we need to do. Are you going to resist, or are you coming along? Okay. We're trying something different at NGN. And I say when I mean NGN with HiveMind team. We're just getting going with two core principles. I hope you guys can see this on the screen. And we're just getting going with two core principles, which are: start with what you do now. Respect current processes, roles, responsibilities, and titles. Okay? No change. Just do what you're doing. It's important that you don't change, in fact. But while you do what you do, just do them around these practices. Few, easy to achieve basic practices. Visualize the work. Co-locate teams where possible from the beginning. Provide autonomy and purpose where possible. So, more of a management practice, really. Give those teams that are doing the work some real autonomy and purpose. And start to improve collaboratively. I've put down these are basic practices. Yeah. To do them fully and to do them right may be a different ball game, but certainly the message we're giving is start as many of these as you can from day one. And that's it in terms of approach. Some characteristics of this approach, and I'm really sort of wanted to describe this in comparison to the previous slide in terms of the characteristics of the framework or methodology approach. So things get going quickly. There's no change to the way things work. So things just spring up. Change is internal. So that's what I mean by that is change is inside out rather than outside in. So it happens with the people within the organisation already, and therefore people are at the heart of it. Engagement is inherent. This approach has a characteristic of generating intrinsic motivation. So there is no are you going to resist or not. The people are doing what they do already, and therefore the existing motivation is already in place. And another characteristic is that it's focused on the present. It's focused on how the work works now. It's not, this is what you should be doing. How far away from that are you? It's, how does it work now? And if putting all those things together, I would say that another characteristic of this approach is sympathetic to the current culture. It, in a sense, it doesn't really matter what the culture is, because it's navigating it. It's sympathetic. I've just got a few fuse messages. Sorry, chaps. Let me just get these off my screen because they're obscuring my view of the slide. Can everyone still see my the full slide? Paul, can you some fuse dialogue just interrupted my deck there. Could you tell me what you guys can see?
Yes, what we're seeing is the top of your Chrome window and the bottom half of, well, the bottom 2/3 of the slide that you're displaying.
Okay. I'm just going to restart the presentation. Some fuse dialogue there completely freaked out my screen. Okay, I think we're okay. Okay, can everyone see a slide, characteristics of this approach?
It is scrolling onto our screen now, and when we're not seeing the rest of your desktop, only the slide now.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, so I've just gone through the characteristics of this approach, and the way I summarise that in comparison to the previous or the other approaches is that this approach amplifies learning, which leads to change from within all on its own. So we're not trying to amplify change or amplify anything. We're setting the scene for organisational or team learning here, which, so in my experience, change automatically comes from within those contexts. So what we've found so far, the way things work is surfaced and constantly visible. We do that through visualizing the work through whiteboards and Kanban boards and Scrum boards, etc. And this one's key for me. The concept of resistance is subordinated. In some cases, it's even muted. So resistance isn't something we talk about here. Because we are not setting resistance as an agenda item, it almost is avoided inherently. Change has come from within the organisation. Change has come from within NGN and at a sustainable pace as well, which is key. And interestingly, leaders have started to appear at all levels within NGN. I've got Matthew Little sitting next to me, and it's interesting to think about how things have changed since those early days, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? Innovation has started to increase naturally. We haven't had any goal or any specific implementation of you will be more innovative. it started to happen naturally. And tellingly, this technique is spreading. It's spreading quickly, and it's now spreading outside of the IT domain. We don't talk much about scaling Agile here. We talk about, or Agile and Lean, we talk about it spreading, which is interesting. More of a benefits orientation. What we can see is that more valuable things are being worked. There is the product backlog at organisational level for NGN is huge, as anyway, but we can see that the most valuable things, or more valuable things, are being worked on now than they were before. Things are getting done more effectively, cheaper, with less waste. Things are getting delivered quicker, and we have metrics for that. And people are happier. We can see that. I can see it. Matthew's not shaking his head, so in fact he's nodding. So, and there's got to be something good in that. So perhaps in summary, a bit of a cliche for Agile guys, NGN are becoming Agile. They're not just doing it. They're becoming Agile at their heart. And it's still early. We've only been doing this for 90 days so far, something that Matthew observed recently. Okay.
There's nobody in here. Eat your food up.
Is that you, Imogen?
Imogen,
yeah, sorry. I'm going back on mistake now.
Super. It was a timely reality.
Yeah, Kenny, I wasn't asking you to eat cake. I was telling my 5-year-old to eat his broccoli.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'd rather have the cake, Imogen. So, cracking on. So, guiding this ongoing evolutionary change. It's nice to have that environment, and it's great that we've been people-centric, but we have a job to do. But now that there is an appetite and an ability to change has evolved at NGN, HiveMinders are now changing their focus to helping show what path to take next. Now that the ability is in place, and for me, more importantly, the appetite from within, then it's a perfect time for us to show where NGN could go. And that's what we're doing. We're doing that, myself, Colin Sweetman and Chris Roberts are doing that at a coaching or Agile Lean coaching context, and we have many other HiveMinders doing that in other contexts, Colin Whale and Nicola Collister, etc. And just one example of how that appetite and ability is being harnessed. We are coaching teams from their current way of working, teams that have got going, surfaced to themselves the way things work, and started to work effectively together. We're now showing them what a path looks like in terms of what about implementing pull. And I realise I'm going into sort of Lean Agile Kanban here, but what about implementing pull on the way you work? Interesting. What about limiting WIP? What does that mean, and where could that take you? What about managing flow? What about building in some feedback loops, as early as possible? And we're doing this in a timely manner, really led by our team or client. Interestingly, when you get to the end of that list, and they're all in place, well, aren't we Agile? Aren't we Lean there and then? And we haven't even talked about a methodology or a framework, or even said the word Agile or Lean. And that's working here. So that's my key message, really. I wanted to bring up this anecdotal learning slide. I understand, there's not a huge amount of time to talk about a fairly big topic. I do want to set a bit of context to this, maybe to shape our discussions. But one thing that has been a revelation for me, and really something I'm very enthusiastic about, is for me, Kanban. The Kanban principles and values has been more of an effective organisational change philosophy at NGN than it is a software delivery or a getting things done framework. You know, it's following Kanban principles and values really has what enabled this way of working and the spread across the organisation. Something else, anecdotally, because of the autonomy that's been put in, we are not limited to a single way of working in each team. So, for example, we have Scrum in one of the work streams. We have pretty straight Kanban in another, and a hybrid in another. And I'm sure if we have time, you know, Colin and Chris could tell us more about that. One interesting thing, I didn't expect this. I'm not sure anybody did, but we've got exec level buy-in here at NGN, and this way of working can spread quickly, and maybe too quickly. You know, we had to have a bit of put the brakes on at one point. So it's a nice problem to have, but we certainly wanted to raise that. So I suppose this is evolutionary change, but it's not evolutionary change at an evolutionary pace. HiveMinders are accelerating this, and we are in control, or at least heavily influencing the rate at which that change is happening, though ultimately we are at the mercy, we are servants to our clients in that context. So I didn't want to end this slide deck and people think that all we're doing is letting things change as long as it takes. We're not doing that. And we're coming to the end of the deck now, so I've just put up, I think there's some guys on the call from the NGN client, but maybe we could talk about some other learnings as well. And thank you, Cole Sweetman, for suggesting I put this slide in. I did want to summarise. My wife tells me how much I can ramble on, so I'm sure that's happened. And in that case, I'd just like to summarise the message here, or certainly our experience. Start where you are. Just get going. Really important. Just get going. Visualise the work and co-locate teams. Simple but profoundly powerful. But be careful, don't change how the work works yet. Put people at the centre of everything. Don't try to change the culture. Embrace it. And crucially, what we're doing as coaches / consultants, whatever really we're called, don't be the change. Provide an environment for it to occur naturally, and the direction, and that's what we're doing. And also on a more day-to-day level, sense when change from within is being demanded, and harness that appetite while it's there. That's where we can influence the most.
Kenny, you've done a great job.
Thank you, guys.
I want to give the other HiveMinders a chance to make comment. I also want to convey a question that got posted while you were talking. Henry Dewing, I know you're on the line. You can state it yourself, or I'll read it if you like. What do you prefer? Got to go off mute. Henry. All right. Well, I'll read it out for you. Oh, great. Henry can't get off mute. Wonderful. So Henry posted the question. This was related to the point you made about co-locating teams. Henry's interested to know how critical it is that teams are actually physically co-located. Are there other ways to accomplish the same thing without physically putting teams in the same physical space?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Is Henry on?
He is. For some reason, he's not able to unmute himself from Fuse. I'm going to blame his lack of technical skill, but I'm sure that's not true.
Well, it's a great question. I think I would like to give my response to that, and maybe some other chaps could also give theirs. It's interesting that our client sat next to us, Matthew Little, who is, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, is probably the leading champion of these new ways of working within NGN. His response was no. You must co-locate, and I think Matthew's probably saying there is that for every person you have that isn't co-located, you will experience some inefficiency. You know, my response to that is it's the reality of the workplace, more so, I think, going forward. I think there is a tipping point in which true collaboration will not happen if you are not sat there with each other, getting to know each other, using rich body language in front of each other, sharing each other's space, being able to convey something. So I haven't answered it directly, Henry. I suppose, yes, it's possible. It's the reality. We have remote team members here at NGN, but we do, I think every team or most teams have a nucleus that are co-located. And if that wasn't the case, we may well have chosen a different change approach.
I know that Henry, well, it's unfortunate Henry can't speak for himself. I'm going to just say something that I'm assuming is true. Henry's area of expertise is in collaboration technologies, among other things. And I'm sure what he's interested in exploring is, are there ways to supplement the physical co-location with collaboration technologies that allow teams to virtually work together? And this may not be something that can be answered, but it's a question that we would want to investigate, perhaps. I see Colin waving his hand, and actually, something. Colin, you want to state yours? Go ahead.
Yeah, on the co-location point, there's no doubt about it that co-located teams do work more effectively. There's just no doubt about that. But I just wanted to raise an example of a client I was working with, actually at pre-HiveMind days. They necessarily had some people who were sitting in Dublin, and the main core of the team was in London. And they did use some collaborative technologies to help. They weren't using a lean kit, but something like that to help visualize the work across the teams. But they did make the point and continue to make the point of getting the teams together from time to time. So when they initially started working together, they were all together for a period of time to get to know each other's foibles and how they worked. And then they went off to their separate places to use technology. To help with the collaboration, but they will get together from time to time going forward to reinforce that team bond that you can only do when you get together face to face.
It seems logical to me that you could supplement the physical co-location with certain technologies that allow teams to be physically separate but continue to work as if they were virtually together. But it sounds like what you're saying is, at some point, these teams need to be physically near each other. They had to occupy the same space for a period of time in order for them to really develop the understanding of how this whole process works. It's harder to do that with the technology standing in the way of that process.
Sure. And the other comment I added on the chat was just another anecdotal learning point to add to Kenny's list. In my area, just visioning the issues that are out there help to surface them previously invisible issues and topics and challenges going on. Just getting them visual is such a powerful thing.
So there's There's another question that's shown up in the text chat that I want to share. This is coming from Imogen, who is fearful of going off mute in case a 5-year-old wants to join us. Her question has to do with senior management wanting to promote the change as something that is a goal or an objective, rather than promoting the idea of allowing things to stay in place to not change, but changing sort of subtly and in a behind the scenes manner. She's concerned or asking the question: would a senior management feel like they need to communicate loud and clear to customers, to shareholders, hey, we're actually changing things, here's evidence of the change that's happening, even though these teams are attempting to change without making overt changes, keeping things in place essentially?
Yeah, yeah. That has been happening. Less so in my certainly my observation is less so than elsewhere I've seen. So, Imogen, I'm not sure whether this has been a good tactic against that. But one thing that we did was we started where the work is. So we started with the doers, and we subordinated management. I should really qualify what that means. We didn't start with management in terms of change. We got the people who do work, visualizing their work, and what we found happened was that managers who were previously telling these people what to do and how to do it then found themselves important to clear blockers out of their way so they could self-organize and do it themselves. There has nevertheless been some of that behaviour that you described, or Paul described on your behalf. It's interesting. I know Cole Sweetman's on the call. Cole, you may not be happy about this, but I wondered if you wanted to. I know that you've been working specifically with management. Has that been one of your topics in the last week or so? You're on mute, by the way.
Yeah. Really, no. The work that I've been doing, so I've started to provide some one-to-one coaching to managers that in a traditional kind of command and control environment would have been very hands-on with these delivery teams. And one of the areas that we're working on is as HiveMinder practitioners is helping those managers who are very intelligent, very experienced, capable people to understand how, with the autonomy we're giving their teams, their role subtly changes from a traditional command and control management role into what we typically call a servant leader role, where their primary focus is to do everything they can to support their team's success and to be able to lead by example in terms of behaviours and their attitudes to work, and also the way that they collaborate with their peers at a management level. Because as we talked about, there have been some comments about co-location, and collaboration is absolutely key to making the autonomy work and the ownership of the work be devolved to the teams themselves. There was I'm drifting off track a little bit, but I saw a really good quote the other day, which was about co-location, and the quote was, if us and them sit together and work together every day, very soon it just becomes us. And that collaboration is very powerful to break down sometimes what you quite often have a kind of a silo mentality within an organization that sort of looks like people talk and collaborate the way the org chart looks, rather than the way that they should collaborate to get great value out of the door as effectively as possible. So I've rambled a little bit, Kenny, didn't really directly answer your question. The one that I did make a comment in the text about Imogen's question, which was to say, in terms of senior management communication, rather than selling a kind of a big bang change program, to really sell, in terms of communication, the potential benefits, and then to celebrate the actual benefits that are being realized from this way of working.
Yeah.
So we've got a flag raised by Chris Roberts. Chris, you've been patient. Want to throw something in here?
Yeah, sure. It was just from the team that I'm working with at NGN. It was just to say regarding the collaboration and co-location of teams that it's had teething problems, but we've sort of actually worked with 4 different sites at one time, actually all collaborating on the same sort of product that we've been delivering. So this would be the sort of thing we're discussing retrospectives, and we've ended up with like Bluetooth speakers, and we've optimized how we can use Google Hangouts. So obviously, yeah, it would definitely be a preference, if at all costs, if you can co-locate teams. But if you have got a certain nucleus within one site who can collaborate together, you can sort of all work together and make the best work. So it was just to chip that in, really, just a real example.
And that's a useful point, because as I mentioned, this is Henry's area of specialization, and I think for him to be able to contribute to organizations that are trying to go through this kind of change, it would be helpful to know if there are technologies that can support the new working style, even though teams aren't physically located together all the time. So I think that's an interesting development to continue to investigate. And thank you for sharing that, Chris.
Sure.
Folks are typing questions in. I can read a couple more. If anybody's got more things to ask, speak up. I see a note from Gary Lloyd. Gary and Colin are conversing by text, but Gary's question has to do with specific first steps in visualizing work. Kenny, share with us what you can, in addition to what Colin has shared. How do you get people to think about and visualize the work that they're doing?
Yeah. Good question, Gary. So starting where you are, it's important that that is interpreted in the right way. I've seen consultants or external help saying they're starting where they are, but then taking a team into a room and showing them a completely different life cycle or value stream to what they do, to how they currently do it, and saying, there you are, there's your visualization board, let's get going. And that has introduced change straight away. So that promotes resistance and all, all those things that we talked about. So what we do, what we've done is we get as much of the team of people who will be delivering the work, and it's key that everybody involved across the whole value stream, the whole life cycle from inception to live, into a room, and we facilitate some value stream mapping, or we talk about how the work currently works, and from that discussion we pull out, okay, out of those 4 or 5 steps, which one of those actually add some value to this piece of work? And we do that for a bit, and then at the top we've got version 0.1 of the value stream, and we just get going. We don't do that for too long. Let's not change it. Let's not optimize it. Let's just accept. And it's quite challenging, because you can see maybe a super siloed, super waterfall value stream, but that's the way the work is. Let it be. And then what happens, certainly what's happened from what I've observed here at NGN, version 0.1 very quickly over 2 or 3 weeks becomes version 1.2, version 4.5, and then it starts to settle down over a couple of weeks as the team. There is a period of where the team realise they've not mapped the way the work works properly. They've left bits out. That tends to settle. And then there's a period where the team actually want to improve themselves the way the work works. And then the board evolves again. So lots of annoying board redesigns in the early days. But yeah, I hope that's cool, Gary.
Any other questions? We've got a couple of minutes, 2 minutes left before I'm going to call a close to this. Anybody else want to pipe up? If not, thank you, Kenny. This was really good. I really learned a lot from the way you explained what to me has been sort of a abstract and theoretical with a little bit of practical implementation experience. But now I really get a sense of what this is like in the real world when, you come into an organization, there's a bunch of people sitting around a table and they're all kind of scratching their heads saying, what the heck do you want us to do? We don't understand this process yet. You've kind of laid out steps of how to introduce this and how to get people thinking. We can do this. We don't have to massively change how we do our work, but we can begin the process of doing things in a way that is different and more effective without literally ripping the roots out of our organization around all the processes that we've adopted over many years.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
Excellent. So folks, reminder, Friday, new members, anybody who's interested in a drop-in for new HiveMinders, we'll send a note out about it by email shortly. It will be at the same time as this drop-in, 1700 UK, 12 noon Eastern time. We'll have a different meeting ID. We won't be using the drop-in ID. So you'll be looking for that meeting ID to join us on Fuse. Bring your questions, and we're looking forward to seeing as many people as possible on Friday. Thank you very much for your attention today. We will be having our regularly scheduled drop-in next week and all the way through the holiday seasons. We're not skipping drop-ins just because of the foolish holidays that have showed up. Thanks, everybody. The call is ended.
Cheers. Thank you.